ago working, and I know she's been doing wonderful science for projects, so maybe your mom would like to say something real quick. But she's been working hard in research, and she's done so much for the community, and she has a passion for chemistry, so we wanted to honor her too.
Finally, we have some ACS members that we'd like to recognize for contributing to the high school teachers. So we want to make sure and recognize them for all of their help. Because without their help, a lot of high school teachers and they would not have the opportunity to do laboratories and some experiments that they normally don't have funds to do. So Dr. Kelly Donahue is a professor at CNY, and she is a chemistry coach for Miss Andrea Nardozi at Davies County Elementary School. We don't believe Kelly's here, but we will make sure she gets a certificate and a special pen. And our last chemistry coach, our second to last chemistry coach, is Dr. Neil Abrams. He is a student ESF professor as well, and he was mentoring Miss Sally Mitchell and Miss Catherine Mitigate here at CNY.
And I just wanted to thank Leah. Joy has gone out and she got standing in SC Science Coach. And I just wanted to say something about Dr. Arden Zick. He was my chem coach, science coach, until the day he died. And he passed away this past December. And he mentored Catherine one year, and I took him the next year. And Neil has been helping as many teachers as they can. But I just wanted to thank Arden for all that he's done. I got to thank him last year at Education Night, and I'm thanking him every day of my life. So thank you, Arden. We have one more mentor here, Dr. Mark Rain. Can you come up forward? And is Mary here? I'm not sure if he's here from you. But Dr. Rain is a professor at Syracuse University, and he has mentored one of my students this year. And I have him in chemistry class, and what a difference a mentor makes. And we just wanted to say thank you for all that you do, and keep on mentoring. So thank you. We have a certificate and a pin for you. I'll give you the thank you. Let's do a door prize. Katie, come on. Katie, you want to come on? We'll do a door prize where we're getting set up here. All right, you got your tickets out? Yeah. All right, here it goes. 740104. Come on down. We have an ACS Chem Club cookbook. Oh, I'm sorry, it's in metric units. I hope that doesn't bother you. Let's do one more. We got more after the end of the talk. 740038. We got one. There we go. Which brings us to the next part of our show today. I want to introduce Dr. Catherine Hunt. She goes by Katie, and she is one of the past presidents of the American Chemical Society.
She has done so much for education that we wanted to bring her here for the Ben Burtt Lecture to continue with our awesome lectures. And I just really don't want to take any of her thunder because she doesn't need really an introduction. So I'm going to pass it right over to Kate.
I'll take it. I have my tip. All right, well, good evening and welcome. I'm going to use this slide for just a couple of minutes of an introduction because I was born in New York, just outside New York City. And so I went to New York Public School, and I had the most awesome high school chemistry teacher. He also taught physics. I think he's still teaching, and that's really something. But that's a testament to his passion and his love of chemistry. And I also want to say that I have very fond memories of this area because my grandmother lived in Auburn, New York. She lived on Lake Road or Lake Drive, and she lived across from what was then called Lakeside Park, but it's actually Emerson Park now. And so that's just a little preview of a little bit of my talk. So let me go ahead and get started. Let's see. Oh, Yep. Okay, here we go. All right. So you all know why you're here, so we'll skip that slide. So I want to thank you, and I want to especially thank Sally Mitchell, who now you've seen, master teacher from New York, also a member of the Central New York local section, and to thank you to the school, to East Syracuse Manoa High School for hosting us tonight. But besides congratulating the award winners who are here, I want to congratulate their teachers and thank them because you're going to see tonight that teachers are the #1 predictor of positive STEM student outcomes. And so to all the New York State master teachers and teachers in training, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for doing what you do. Actually, what I used to say to the members of the American Chemical Society when I was president, and they still repeat this, I thank you for all that you have done and all that you are going to do. Because I know that a lot of you, unlike me, I retired in January of 2013. I may have retired from Dow Chemical, but I have not retired from the profession. So the reason I told you about Auburn, New York, so this is the Lakeside Park. Maybe about the time that I used to go over there, and I used to be able to just walk across the street even when I was 5 and 6 years old because there wasn't a lot of traffic, and there was a merry-go-round inside this pavilion. And today, to fit with innovation and recreating ourselves to keep up with the times and to keep up with changes, this is what Emerson Park looks like today. In the place where the merry-go-round was, today there is a playhouse. And so when was it? 2 years ago, July 4th, when I took my husband up there to show him Quiet Lake Drive on the 4th of July, okay, it was wall-to-wall traffic. They were parking cars everywhere. My grandmother's house is still there. It doesn't look the same. Been doubled in size, a 2-car garage, all kinds of things. But my husband said, wow, things change. But I think as much as things change, things can stay the same, right? People were there to have fun. People were there to celebrate family. People were there to enjoy life. And so really, that's what I want to talk about tonight, is what it is that we need to do to enjoy life, to make this a sustainable planet. And I think that there's never been a better time to be a chemist or a chemistry professional, because we're facing world challenges of energy, food, and water. And I believe it's time to reignite our commitment to science and technology. This is the platform, actually, that I, quote, ran on for ACS president in 2005. I want to make it very clear that being ACS president, even though you have to run, but you can't have your company pay for the campaign, right? You need to have your own website in order to communicate with people. And my graduate advisor said, Katie, what's your platform? I said, what's my platform? And he said, well, you can't run for ACS president unless you have a platform. I mean, what are you going to stand for? Why is ACS going to be different because you are president? What do you hope to achieve? If you don't start out with a plan, how do you know if you're successful? If you don't have a vision and set goals, how can anyone follow you? Kind of like what Warren Buffett said. The way you tell a leader, the way you find out if you are a leader, is you turn around and you see if anyone's following you. So, I said, what do I stand for? What is important to me? What do I think is important to science and technology? Well, it's education. Education of legislators, the media, the public, and some of those award winners tonight, the next generation. It's about collaboration. Because if you're like me, you're pretty busy. So you're not looking for more things to do. So the important thing is to figure out how to clone people like Sally and Joy, right? So that you can get more things done with fewer people. No. The way to do it is to work together, to know where we're trying to get to so that we can all be focused. And innovation, because it's really about recreating our companies if you're working for industry, our universities or our schools if you're in academia. Or how about recreating ourselves? I think many times as I worked at Rohm and Haas and then at Dow over my nearly 30-year career, I went from being a bench chemist to being a quality assurance lab manager to being a global network manager. And by network, I mean networking people together, not computers. To being an analytical technology manager, to being the corporate sustainability director, right? And changing my networks and my understanding and my goal setting along the way. And so I put different examples up here. You can see our master teacher at work with her students. Here I am giving congressional testimony for funding for science and technology in terms of funding and setting the budget for the National Science Foundation. And then I pulled this out of recreating an innovation that's going on in New York. So maybe you recognize this. So how do we recreate ourselves? And what if the vision was to recreate education, to reinvigorate education? Well, many of you may know Jamie C. as I call her, so I don't have to butcher her last name. Okay? Great teachers are the #1 indicator of great student outcomes. And so I'm really pleased to be up here and meet some of the New York State master teachers. I realize this program just started this year, but what if this program was across the U.S.? What if everyone, or at least 33% of them, because they know that's what it takes to get the ball rolling, were master teachers? What would it take to do that? Why are the master teachers here tonight? because they're working on molecular spectroscopy. And when I heard that, I said, oh my gosh. If I say molecular spectroscopy, how many of you out there in the audience can raise their hands and say, I know what molecular spectroscopy is, and I know what it can be used for? All right, I see some hands out there. What would it take for all of you to raise your hands? Okay. Let me see if I can mention some ways that this is important to everyone in this room. How many of you know someone who has celiac disease or is gluten intolerant? Anyone out there? Anyone out there? Or how many of you have seen the gluten-free signs in the supermarket and wondered, what the heck is that? Okay, so gluten is a protein in things like wheat and rye and barley, and some people are very allergic to that. Well, you need molecular spectroscopy to do the quality assurance testing to ensure that your food that you're eating, if you are gluten intolerant, is gluten-free. So, the next time you see gluten, you can think molecular spectroscopy. Okay? What else? Let's face it this way. Okay, I guess I'm not. I'm stuck again, Joy. Okay. MRI. How many of you have heard of MRI, magnetic resonance imaging? All right, I see hands out there again. Actually, it was called nuclear magnetic resonance, but people were demonstrating because they thought we were talking about nuclear, like nuclear bombs. But no, it's about nuclei, like in the nucleus. But in any case, here's someone being put into now a non-claustrophobic MRI to have his knee examined. I can do it this way. Or how about near infrared? How many of you have heard of oxygen analyzers? Right? In the hospital, they're looking at oxygen monitoring to see if you've got oxygen in your blood. Well, you need near infrared to do that. Okay, and you need chemists to develop these test methods. All right, now some of you, I'm sure, have seen CSI. Right? And so forensics are really dependent on molecular spectroscopy because each of these chemical compounds, like TNT, different explosives, have their own infrared fingerprint, their own spectrum by which they can be identified. And so in this case, we've run a number of different explosives, one of them being TNT. And TNT is this black line here. All right, so if you're trying to do, if you're part of Department of Homeland Security and you're trying to identify terrorists, or you're doing bomb wipes off someone's luggage at the airport, right, you need infrared laser in order to look at and identify what might be the contaminant on that material. But I was talking about master teachers. So how do we get there? What if we wanted, what if our goal was for everyone in the U.S. to be a master teacher? Well, if I stand over here in the present and I say, well, I learned today about how to teach someone something at one of the SUPA sessions over at Syracuse University. And they said, if you give someone something that's too big of a chunk or too many chunks at once, they get overwhelmed. And they just say, I have no idea how to get that done. But if I stand over here in the future, if I take off everything I know about the present and say, well, if I wanted everyone to be a master teacher, what would that look like? What would people be saying about teachers? How would teachers feel? How would they feel supported by their schools, by their communities? And how do you make that happen, right? So my mother used to call this starting with the end in mind. If you know where you're trying to get, then you look back to the present and you think of all the steps you need to take, right? So you start with a pilot program. You start with 75 master teachers. You start with 75 teachers in training. And then you build it out from there. So what a wonderful idea. So how do we close that education gap? How do we create all these master teachers and connect them? The American Chemical Society was asked by teachers to create a national Science Teachers Association for K through 12 chemistry teachers. And so if you look at this, you say, really? Isn't there already a national association? That's what I said because I'm not a teacher. It turns out there's not. So starting this September, we are going to be launching AACT. You can go to acs.org, AACT, to pre-register before the launch date. And just 7 days ago, we approved our logo, AACT, American Association of Chemistry Teachers, and I'm really pleased how many people can see what is coming into focus here. Think cupcakes. Think cupcakes. The periodic table of the elements. But this is going to take collaboration. Right? We can kick off an association, but we need the teachers to participate. And I heard Diane Bunce this morning say to the master teachers, some of them that she was speaking to, and she said, AACT is what the university chemistry teachers are looking towards to find those high school chemistry teachers to collaborate with. Because they want people who are on the forefront of making chemistry happen. But how do we make things work? So I'm going to talk to you about how I look at things in industry in terms of putting teams together, because that's what I did. And how do you put a team together to ensure success? And I can usually only remember 3 things. So these are the 3 that I focused on. Competency, passion, and alignment. And it turns out that this is research that came out of Los Alamos National Lab. So they said, you know what? You need all 3. If you only have 2 out of 3, it doesn't work. Because if you have competency and you have alignment, but you have no passion, can you think of instances like that for you? Things you have to do that you have no passion for? That's a chore, isn't it, right? You can think of those things, right? My son used to say, Mom, I know you want me to make my bed. I know I can make my bed. But I don't want to make my bed. No passion. Okay. What if we have competency and passion, but we don't know where we're going, or we're not aligned with what the company or the nonprofit association or whatever I'm looking to work on or with is? That's a hobby. A hobby is a lovely thing, but it doesn't move the organization you're working with forward. What about you have passion? You love playing lacrosse. You love water polo. You name it. And you are aligned with being the best. But you don't know how to do that. Okay? That means you're a rookie. It's not bad to be a rookie. But what it means is you need to know you're a rookie. You need to know that you need training. Right? That's why I think it's so awesome to see the master teachers who are in training, and the master teachers like Sally who still have mentors, right? Because no matter how good you are, you can always be better. You can always learn more. Because when you do that, when you focus on bringing all 3 of those things together, you don't just get incremental growth. You get step-back growth. You get award winners like our poetry writer tonight, right? Someone who had passion and still does, who knew what she was trying to do, write that best poem, and had the competency to do it. And that is what wins awards. So we need those students and those people focused on identifying gaps and finding solutions to energy and alternate energy. So I love that t-shirt. It would make my heart glad to have one of those t-shirts. The energy of evolution, right? Or the evolution of energy. Good play on words. Water. We heard so much about water tonight in the poetry and how it's so important to life itself. And food. Now, all three of these things are involved. So if I start working on converting corn into bioethanol, I've now taken that corn out of the food cycle, right? So now I've changed the food supply. Now I'm causing the cost of corn to go up, which is now going to affect the dairy farmers, right? So we have to look at these things with what the engineers call systems thinking. We have to draw the box wide enough to understand and not to create unintended consequences. So here's a little bit of inquiry-based learning, and it's a little hard for me because I can't see you raise your hands because it's so dark. But you'll have to call out if you know the answer. The question is, where do you spend the most energy? And by energy, I mean your energy dollars. Oh, the lights came up. Well, this is good. Where do you spend the most energy? If you're a homeowner.
Gas.
Yes. Fuel. Yes. Okay, so what if you could use, let me go back a step. When people think about cutting costs, where do they usually look? People costs, right? But guess what? You spend a lot of money on fuel. So if you would cut back on your energy costs, okay, you could then understand that investing in energy efficiency is just that. It's an investment, not simply a spend. And so I was working with the mayor of Philadelphia on his energy sustainability board. Actually, just not energy, just his Philadelphia Sustainability Board. And we called our project Greenworks because the mayor came out and he said, my vision is that Philadelphia is the greenest city in America. So he had this group of corporate people, and et cetera, from Philadelphia, and we sat there and said, how can you say that? He said, how many of you are scientists? And most of us raised our hand. He said, you see, that's because you make database decisions. I'm a politician. So I can just say, we are the greenest city in America, and you guys have to figure out how to make it happen. So he said, those of you who are CEOs, you know how that works. We say it, you have to figure out how to make it happen. And so we sat down, another unpaid job that I had, and looked at how do we green Philadelphia? And we came up with, we got to look at energy. We have to look at engaging people in what we're trying to do. We have to look at social equity. Because if we do things that don't make people equal, well, that's not going to engage them. And so we went around and around. And one of the things we came up with was we should retrofit 15% of the housing stock in Philadelphia with insulation, air sealing, so sealing the cracks around the windows, and cool roofs, so this is a solar reflective material that you can put on your roof so that you have to do less, you lose less heat in the winter and you need to do less cooling in the summer. And it gets very hot in Philadelphia in the summer. So I worked for Dow Chemical. We have Dow Building Solutions as one of our groups. We have the Dow Foundation there. I looked around and I said, so this is the collaboration piece of it. So we have the innovations. Dow knows how to do all those things. So we need a collaboration if we want this to happen. And so the collaboration, and so I'll give you all the things we were going to work on. Energy, environment, economy, equity. We decided to have a contest. And it was our Greenworks board, the city of Philadelphia. Because it turns out there are 4,000 city blocks in the city of Philadelphia. And a block is not a block like a square, like a block, kids playing block. It is the houses on the street that face each other, because those are your neighbors, those are the people you know. Well, there are 4,000 of those, and each of them has a block captain, and most of them are in row homes. And so if we did this one house at a time, it would take too long. What if we could do insulation, air sealing, pool roofs of an entire city block? How do you get people to do that? So I said, let's have a contest. What does a Ph.D. chemist know about running a contest? Not a whole lot, but I know enough to know that's not my competency, and while I was aligned and passionate, I needed someone else who had that competency to be part of the team. ECA is the engineering corporation, ECA. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Okay, Liz Robinson started this nonprofit to talk about energy efficiency in Philadelphia. And so what we did is we put out flyers. The mayor sent out information to all the block captains that he was going to have meetings to talk about this contest that they could win. And wow. So there was the education piece. The rules were, it would be the block that would win that would get the most members of their block involved to do this, have this work done. That they would have to write a short, less than 500-word essay of why they should win. And then they had to be willing to have a block party with the mayor, right? With music and food and a band and all kinds of fun stuff. And maybe make a video about what it was like to have their houses retrofit. And so let me tell you, this was a very heated competition. And the winners were the 1200 block of Wolf Street. You can go online and see what that block looks like. They got 29 out of 30 homes to be fully retrofit, which actually for a scientist was very exciting, because what it means is we can now do studies on that block. And when we take infrared pictures, back to molecular spectroscopy, we can see that this is the coolest block in Philadelphia because it's got white roofs, and we can see that that one house that didn't do it is hot while the others are cool. And in the summer, that's very important. These houses are also warmer in the winter because of the insulation we put in. So it keeps the heat in the winter when you're heating. It keeps the air conditioning in the winter. As a matter of fact, one of the residents, and these homes have in this case, the front bedroom hung out over their porch. So they had nothing underneath about, I guess, the first 10 feet, 8 feet of their bedroom. And the woman said to me, you know, when I had my house retrofit, I lost my wine cooler. I said, what? She said, in the winter, my bedroom was so cold in the front corner that I used to keep my wine up here to keep it cold, because I only drink white wine. And my husband keeps his beer up here. He said, now we have to put it in the refrigerator. So I thought, wow, that is a wonderful story. If you want to learn more about that, that's at retrofitphilly.com. I should put down this. The reason I'm holding this is because it's got a little buzzer in here telling me my time is almost up. Oh. I was going to tell you, so I won't jump back on slides, that the city of Philadelphia was so pleased with that one block, and we had been working with the Department of Energy, that they wrote a grant. Because you might say, well, how are they going to do the rest of the blocks? They wrote a grant for $25 million, and they received it from the Department of Energy. It was called an EECBG grant, Energy Efficiency Block Grant, Community Block Grant. And the idea was for low-income families to be able to apply for funding to help them invest in insulating their homes in order to lower their heating and cooling costs. And actually, when we went back and analyzed their heating and cooling bills, which was also part of the winners, the results were fantastic. And I don't know which was better, right? Getting the work done and seeing the scientific data, or having these people look at their heating and cooling bills and say, with the rising cost of energy, without this, we would have been in very, very sore shape. So it really helped them stay ahead of the curve. And another one of my nonprofit initiatives is a practical guide to cool roofs and cool pavements. We are now working on this internationally. It's called GCCA, the Global Cool Cities Alliance. And we are now working, we worked with the former Secretary Chu, the Secretary of Energy, who was very much a proponent of cool roofs and solar reflective materials. And what I want to leave you with is the thought of, if there are any of these initiatives that are interesting to you, pursue them. If there are students that you can inspire to work on these, do it. And if you want to ask me questions, you can find me on Twitter at Katie Chemist. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Facebook. And the other piece that I would like to talk to you about is that you can find me on the AACT website, the American Association of Chemistry Teachers. So I urge you to join. I encourage you to encourage your kids' teachers to join, and I encourage you to think about how we make all of our teachers master teachers, and how we make all of our students the very best that they can be. So thank you very much for your kind attention at this hour. Congratulations on your awards, and if you have questions, I'd certainly be willing to entertain. Thank you.
Educators here, they're all pretty excited as well. So I guess we have a few more door prizes. Anybody got their slips up? Miss Hunt, I have one of those. Or Dr. Hunt, I'm sorry. We have a evolution of energy share for me.
All right.